victories that I love so dear bring the power of a new era to me!
What is up, you guys? It's your boy Lucas Rio here from Team Cardfighters United, and I have for you guys another deck profile. This, of course, is not a budget deck, but it is not extremely expensive. If you're seeing this, you probably want to go ahead and start buying your Altmiles. They're only like $3 or $4 a piece, because once the character booster drops, I think next month, either later this month or next month, he is going to get expensive because there's a new Altmile in for a trial deck for Xion. So I went ahead and built this for you guys. I've come to enjoy Altmile due to something that, due to certain circumstances, I've come to enjoy Altmile quite a bit, actually, even though I main Shadow Paladin. So I just wanted to share this with you guys for a few. Alright, let's get into this. So the starter, of course, is Resurgent Knight Stius. His skill, of course, has the Forerunner ability, but he's also got a Brave ability. For those of you who do not know, Brave is Royal Paladin's keyword that they gain a skill only if you have 3 or less cards in your hand. So it's pretty risky, but I guess that's why they call it Brave. So his skill, when he's at Brave, you can send him to the soul, give one of your rear guards an additional 5,000 power, and then bounce it back to your hand. He's pretty decent when it comes to this, because that allows you to enable you to call a trigger for boosting for whatever skill you want to use, and then you bounce it back to your hand at the end of the turn. So pretty good. Probably switching him out for the new starter that's in the character booster. I like him a lot better. He helps Brave. He helps a lot of Brave. And now let's go to triggers. Of course, for heal triggers, I use Healing Pegasus, but you can use any heal trigger you desire. It does not matter to me. Next are criticals. I run 10 crit in this deck. 4 copies of Sanctuary of Light Shooting Ray. Generic crit. There is an Altmile crit. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I do not run him in this deck, but you can if you want to. He was just too expensive for me at the time, and I just never got around to buying him. I don't think I will. He's not necessary. I would never use his skill. I don't use special crit skill unless it's like really, really good, really good. Anyway, I run 4 copies of Burning Mane Lion, and then 2 copies of Knight of Flash. Alright, and the last trigger is something that's really not expected from a lot of decks. I run 2 draw triggers, Margal. Now, before you click off of this video or question why I run draw triggers in a Brave deck, because your hand gets so small and you end up with not a lot of guard power, if you drive or damage check him and get that extra card in your hand, he becomes a pretty decent asset, because 9 out of 10 you either draw a heal trigger that'll have you G-guard later in the turn, or you end up getting a perfect guard or something with a big shield that you can protect yourself with. But I run at a 2 of just in case, and of course it is Margal, so at least I benefit from him if I get him in my hand at any point in time. I can send him to the soul and get an extra 3k boost. Alright, now on to grade 1s. So, my first one is Perfect Guards. I run 4 copies of Hopekeeper. Hopekeeper is the G-era Perfect Guard for Royal Paladin. Her skill, of course, she's got the Sentinel ability, so you can only run 4 copies of her. She, of course, has the Perfect Guard ability where you have to drop a card to block an attack. But then she's got a Brave ability, which I find is like really, really good from her. If you are at Brave, when you call her, she gets an extra 2k boost, and then she gains a skill that you can counterblast and then bounce her back to your hand. Now, this is really, really good because you do not have to be in Brave to activate the counterblast skill, because she gains the skill and she keeps it until the end of the turn. So even if you're not at Brave at the end of the turn, when her skill is able to be used, you can still counterblast and bounce her back to your hand. But, of course, when you call her, you do have to be in Brave in order to gain the skill. Alright, next I run 3 copies of Laurel Knight Sisyllus, which is the Altmile Stridefighter. Of course, has the Stridefighter ability, which when you drop him gains an extra 2 grades. But then has the ability, when he's placed, you can search your deck for Altmile, add it to your hand, and then drop a unit equaling grade 3. Pretty standard card. He's only for emergencies. You don't need. I don't use the first ability at all in any of my decks. You'll never see me calling him and activating that first skill, unless I'm in a dire situation. All right, the next card is Knight of Reformed Peer. Now, a lot of people do not use him at all, but I love using him. The combos with this deck is beautiful. He is while he's on the rearguard circle on G-Break, if you call a grade 2 from your deck to your field, when you call a grade 2 and you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Altmile in his card name, both him and the unit in front of him gain an extra 2k. So he does not have to just boost a rearguard to give them an extra 2k. If you want, you can call him behind a Vanguard and have the Vanguard and him continuously plussing from an extra 2k. And I think that's really, really amazing. Alright, next I run 3 copies of Headwind Knight Salim. Salim's skill is Brave, G-Break on the rearguard circle. If I have a Vanguard with Altmile in his card name, he gets an extra 3k boost. And then in the deck, if I have a Vanguard with Altmile, he gets plus grade 1, so he becomes a grade 2 in the deck. Therefore able to be called using just about any skill that calls a grade 2 from deck. Really good combos. You can call him as a booster. Although you cannot use him and Peer at the same. You cannot use. You cannot call him to get an extra 2k for Peer, because he is not a grade 2 when he's placed on the rearguard. On the rearguard circle, he becomes a grade 1 again. Only in deck does he become a grade 2. All right. And speaking of grade 2s, let's move on to them. All right. My first grade 2 is Counteroffensive Knight Suleiman. Suleiman is my favorite grade 2 from every Altmile deck I've ever seen. Because his skill, Brave, if I have an Altmile Vanguard, gains an extra 3k. Same thing as Salim. But he has a skill, G-Break. You can counterblast 1 and drop a card from your hand. And he's able to call a grade 2 from your deck, and then both units gain an additional 2,000 power. My apologies. Just the unit you call gains an extra 2,000 power. If you combo properly, you should be able to call like 3 or 4 grade 2s at the same time. But awesome card. I love him so much. Not too expensive, maybe $5 a piece. This entire deck was maybe a little bit over $50, give or take. That includes Salim, actually, $50. Alright, next I run 3 copies of Knight of Fragment. Now, a lot of people do not run Knight of Fragment for whatever reason, but because there is no good way to countercharge. Well, I have no good way to countercharge without spending a butt ton of money. I use him when he's on the rearguard circle. He does not have the Brave ability, so when he's on the rearguard circle, if you have 2 or more grade 2s, including him, he gets an additional 2,000 power and an on-hit ability that when he hits, he gets to countercharge and soul charge. which is really, really good considering that this deck, for some reason, does a lot of soul blasting, but of course, like any Royal Paladin deck, does a lot of soul countercharging. So, pretty decent card. I like him. I don't know why people don't use him at all anymore, anyway. So, next I run only 2 copies of Knight of Twin Sword. The Amber clone for Royal Paladin, Counterblast 1. If he's boosted when he attacks, you can pay the cost and then call grade 2 from your deck. Pretty straightforward, pretty good when you work in combos. He's how you use a lot of the multi-attack during your attack phase. He's pretty okay. Next, I run 2 copies of Knight of Flight Danius. Danius' skill is during the turn when he's on the rearguard circle, he gets an additional 1,000 power for every unit with Brave on the field. So he can get a max of an additional 5k. He cannot count himself. That is the only catch. And then he does have a Brave ability as well. You can Counterblast 1, and then he gets an additional 2,000 power, and then the ability to bounce back to your hand at the end of the turn. No, my bad. He chooses one of your rear guards to bounce back to your hand at the end of the turn. Alright, the last grade 2 I run is Knight of Refinement Benny-Zell. Benny-Zell has always been in Altmile for a long time. Pretty good combo card when you're calling during your battle phase. Because you can call him, Counterblast, Soul Blast, and then you're able to switch your deck for a grade 2 and Superior Call it. And then both him and the grade 2 you call get an extra 2k boost. Alright, next is grade 3s. Let me move all this stuff out of the way. I will definitely be making a video after the character booster updating this deck. Some things will be the same, some things won't, but it will be a lot better. Anyway, grade 3s, I run 3 copies of Knight of Mastery Glenus. When he's on the rearguard or Vanguard circle and he attacks, he gets an extra 2k when he gets an extra 2k, but he has to attack the Vanguard. But the reason I run him is because he has an in-deck skill. In the deck, he gets minus grade 1, meaning he becomes a grade 2 in the deck. So he's the opposite of Suleim. Suleim. He's the opposite of Suleim, and he is able to be called by any grade 2 calling abilities. And then if you combo properly, I've managed to get him over 40,000 power. If you guys want to see a combo video for me for this deck, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Alright, the last card in the main deck, 4 copies of Blue Sky Knight Altmile. His first ability, G-Break 2, during your turn, all of your units in the front will get an additional 5,000 power. Pretty straightforward. And then when you stride, you can Counterblast 1 and call 2 units from your hand. And then give 2 more units an additional 5,000 power. The units that you call with his ability do not have to get the 5,000 power from him. You can choose your Vanguard and a rear guard, or any 2 other rear guards. Whatever you need or whatever you want to gain 5,000 power can gain 5,000 power. If you call properly, you should have 5 cards in your hand by the time you stride, and then you just call 2 with that ability, plus off of that by giving 2 units 5,000 power, and then you're at Brave. Alright, that is it for the main deck, and now on to the strides. Now, why this deck is only $50 is because there is no Altmile strides in here. The Altmile strides are like super, super expensive, and the deck works perfectly without them. Let me show you. Alright, first off, let's start off with the G-Guards. I run 1 copy of Laser Guard Dragon, Laser Guard Dragon skill is when he's placed on the Guardian Circle, if I have one grade 2 on the field, he gets an additional 5,000 shield. Pretty straightforward. And then I run a copy of Dark Elemental Dismal. Dismal is only here to deal with like VMAX and to deal with VMAX, to deal with Darkface, to deal with anything from Link Joker, just so I can protect them. He has the resistibility himself, and then when he's placed on the Guardian Circle, you choose one of your rear guards, and it cannot be attacked or affected by your opponent's skills. So I'm pretty sure Dismal is a staple in every deck now. I think Dismal is like almost tripled in price when VMAX was revealed. And I run, and last G guards, 2 copies of Vivid Sacred Staff Androgus. Androgus skill, if I have 2 or more grade 2s on the field, he gives an extra 10k shield. So he's basically a better version of Laser Guard Dragon. If you want, you can run 3 copies of Androgus, but for those times that you only have 1 grade 2, I suggest using Laser Guard. Alright, next I run 1 copy of Air Elemental Seabreeze. Seabreeze, because I run this unit because people like grade 2 stalling, and I am not just a user but a victim of it, because I play a lot of meta decks and people like to stall meta decks for some reason. I don't know why. It's not going to help them, but I use but Seabreeze's skill is if your opponent did not ride at all and they're still on grade 2 and you're on grade 3, you can counterblast 2 and drop any card from your hand, and then you can stride him. So he's an early stride. He's pretty good. I'm thinking of taking him out later on. Maybe, maybe not. It'll depend. And of course, I run a single copy of Snow Element Blizza. Blizza skill, you counterblast 1 and unflip something from your G zone. And then he gets 5,000 power for every face-up unit on your G zone. Pretty straightforward, awesome skill. Best used really, really late game. That's all I got for you there. Alright, next comes the actual good strides. First one is Great Sage of Contradiction Giron. He's a promo. When he's placed on the Vanguard Circle, you choose a card from your hand and call it. And then you get to choose another one of your units and it gains 5,000 power. He's just a lesser version of Altmile that's free. That's all he is. That's all Giron is. He's just a free Altmile. If you don't have the counterblast to use Altmile, you strat Giron and you still get Altmile skill. It's just at a lesser. Alright. I then run a single copy of Divine Knight of Flashing Flame Samuel. Samuel is one of the auto damagers that Bushiroad has given Vanguard. His skill, you counterblast 2. When he attacks, you have to have 5 or more rear guards, and your opponent has to be at 4 or less damage. You cannot use him to finish the game. That is the only downside to Samuel. But you counterblast 2. If you met those requirements, you get to deal 1 damage to your opponent. He's normally used as a finisher. That's what he's normally for. That's why I only run him out of 1 of, because 9 out of 10 people are just going to perfect guard him. Alright, I then run a single copy of Shrouded Divine Knight Gobblade. His skill, if the attack hits a Vanguard, search your deck for grade 2, superior call it. That's it. That's all it is. It's nothing too huge. That's all he does. He's just there for a first stride, pretty much. Alright, now we're moving on. I run 3 copies of Divine Knight of Rainbow Brocade Clotinus. One of the G rares from the Fighters collection that previously happened. His skill, you counterblast 1, soul blast 1, unflip something from your G zone. And you get to search your deck for as many grade 2s as you have face-up copies of Clotinus, and call them to rearguard circles. And then he gets a continuous GB3, gets an extra 10,000 power and an extra critical. Pretty amazing skill for its cost. Pretty cheap considering it's a G rare. I only run it a 3 of instead of a 4 of because there are other things that I can do. And if I run it a 3 of, I can maximize his skill without going over everything else. And last but not least, my absolute favorite stride for all of Royal Paladin, Blazing Sword Fighties. I run at a 4 of. You don't have to run at a 4 of. You can, because his skill works at a 2 of. But I like using him at a 4 of because I can continue using him over and over. And he for some reason, is how I'm able to get a lot of power. His skill is choose a face-down card from your G-Zone, turn it face up, and then drop a card from your hand. You search your deck for 1 grade 2 and superior call it. And then if it has the Brave ability, you draw a card. And until the end of the turn, he gets a GB3 skill that's Brave. When he attacks, if I have a face-up card named Fides in my G-Zone, I choose one of my opponent's rear guards and retire it. And then choose up to 2 of my units, and they get an additional 5,000 power. So if I use him in the same turn as Altmile, I give 2 units, either 2 units an additional 10,000 power total, or 4 units additional 5,000 power total. Either way, he helps get huge numbers. Other than that, that is all for my Altmile deck profile. Please like this video and subscribe to us. Leave a comment down below if you have any other decks that you want us to make and then do a profile for. We have a lot of content coming out for you guys. We're sorry we have such lack of content recently. We've been pretty busy with the holidays and family and stuff, but we will be back. We will have a lot more coming up, considering that everybody now on TCU has a computer that is able to do everything that we need to do for you guys. This has been Lucas Rio from Team Cardfighters United, and always remember, meta is disgusting.